DC News Now at noon.
A flood watch is in effect for the area as a front moves on through. How much rain could fall? The details coming up.
No cell phone policies coming to schools in Virginia. What you need to know next.
I think it's going to make a lot of people upset.
A heads up, the price you pay to register your car in Maryland is going up. Learn how much it's going to cost you. Then meet the nurse helping her peers get the support they need in this week's DMV Doer. And what better place to be than celebrating 4th of July in the DMV? Learn everything from how to get free rides to proper fireworks safety for you and your pets.
You're watching the station covering all of the DMV. This is DC News Now.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the news at noon. I'm Mark Hall. It is a DMV first warn day. Storms are expected to hit the region this afternoon. Meteorologist Scott Sumner joined us now with the latest check on the forecast. Scott, what are we looking at?
All right, it's going to be a busy afternoon. Let's just set the table right off the bat here. We have a flood watch that's in effect throughout the majority of the area. And just reading from the Storms Prediction Center, they have about a 95% chance of issuing a severe thunderstorm watch as well coming out this afternoon. If I were to take a stab at it, I'd say somewhere from 2 to 10 or 2 to 11 or 3 to 11. Somewhere in that time frame, I think they'll come out with a severe thunderstorm watch. But we'll wait and see. At least right now, we have that flood watch in effect until 11 o'clock for all the counties here shaded in the color green. And I believe that flooding is going to be the #1 threat, even more so than damaging winds, because not too often do we get into that moderate risk of flooding in our viewing area. Now, there's some rain out here. This is out towards western Maryland, fairly light and steady in nature, nothing too over the top, if you will. And we have another rain band that's down around the Madison area here. That's moving off to the northeast at about 18 miles an hour. Again, under severe limits. So far, everything is in check at the moment. But as we widen out the view, you can see that these storms are starting to fire up down around I-64 to the west of Charlottesville. That's the area that we're going to be starting to focus on initially, and then all of this activity not only is moving from south to north, but it's also moving from west to east. So eventually the I-95 corridor here from all the major metro areas will get into the act. Now the future radar here, so this will take you right to a little after 2 o'clock, shows not much going on even at 2 o'clock around DC. But again, you can see a flare of activity continuing to develop out to our western county. So we'll talk timing, we'll talk how much rain could potentially fall, all coming up in the main weather in just a bit. Mark?
All right, Scott. Jimmy Swaggart has died today. The Louisiana native was known as a Pentecostal preacher before he was caught on camera in 1988 with a prostitute. He was then one of several preachers brought down by sex scandals in the 80s and 90s. Exact cause of his death has not been shared, but we are told that he was ill. Jimmy Swaggart was 90 years old. Today is July 1st. That means that new laws going into effect across the DMV in Virginia. It's the deadline for school boards to have their new cell phone policies in place after Governor Glenn Youngkin issued an executive order last year to restrict cell phone use in schools throughout the Commonwealth. And our Candace Cole is outside Washington at Liberty High School with more.
Schools and school districts here in Virginia are now required to develop policies to create a cell phone-free environment to cut down on, quote, addictive cell phone use and distractions in the classroom for students. Guidance put forth by the Virginia Department of Education last year calls for age-appropriate bell-to-bell policies requiring students to lock up their smartphones from the time the first bell rings until it's time for dismissal. The guidelines also include smartwatches and tablets. Language in the law is aimed at limiting distractions and disruptions in the learning environment and aims to cut down bullying. The law also includes exceptions for students under an IEP or individualized learning plan. Some school districts have already adopted a bell-to-bell policy, like here in Arlington, where their policy went into effect back in January. APS will also require high school students to store their cell phones in secure pouches during the school day starting next school year.
It's a good idea. I think students need to keep concentrated in the school, and it's a good idea just to keep them tucked away so they don't have any distractions.
We have yonder pouches, and it's okay, but like he said, it kind of gives me a break from my phone. but sometimes I don't really like it. Sometimes it makes people like want to use their phones more now that it's locked up.
And there are also provisions in the law preventing school suspension for students who may happen to violate the no cell phone policy. Reporting in Arlington, Candace Cole, DC News Now.
Our thanks to Candace. And in Maryland, more regulations on cannabis. There's a new limit on the amount of THC per serving in cannabis products sold, along with a possible limitation of marijuana consumption at retail locations. Now, in terms of consumer protections, storage facilities now have to give a 10-day notice before selling the property of customers who are late on payments. And with environmental laws, there's more regulations for fishing in hopes of improving the Chesapeake Bay water quality. For a full list of the laws, head to DCNewsNow.com. And happening today, D.C. Council is voting on Mayor Bowser's change to the juvenile curfew. Under the proposal, juvenile curfew would be moved to 11 p.m. and it would be every night in June, July, and August, and extended to include 17-year-olds. And it would also allow police to establish extended juvenile curfew zones similar to the drug-free zones, where curfew could be set for at 7 p.m. for 15 days and could be extended to 30 days. This coming after large gatherings of teenagers have created problems in areas like Navy Yard and the Wharf. Also developing now in Northwest D.C., one man is dead this afternoon after a triple shooting in Mount Vernon Square. It happened late last night on 7th Street. Now, the police say they found a man and a woman and the young boy injured. They were all taken to the hospital where the man died. Anyone with information on the shooting is asked to contact police. Happening today, the council voting on a rule change that could make it easier to expel former council member Trayon White if he's reelected. It would allow the council to use the past investigation into White as evidence to kick him off council again. White was expelled from his Ward 8 seat back in February following his indictment on a federal bribery charge. A special election for his seat is July 15th. White is running again for his old seat. An update on a case of the wrongfully deported Maryland father. Judge is ordering Kilmar Abrego Garcia to stay in a Tennessee jail while he awaits trial for human smuggling charges. Now, his attorney is raising concerns that the administration would immediately deport him if he's released. They're now asking the judge to delay his release until the July 16th court hearing. ICE first mistakenly deported Abrego Garcia back in March, then refused to cooperate with the Supreme Court that ordered to his return. His attorneys are calling the human trafficking allegations preposterous, saying that they are purely politically motivated. Well, new sticker shock in Maryland. The bigger SUV you have in your driveway, it's going to soon cost you nearly $200 to register. Price of the jacked up for drivers, from those with motorcycles to small compact cars. DC News Now's Tim Reed talks to unhappy people wondering what's behind the increase.
I think it's going to make a lot of people upset because you got to think about fixed incomes. You got to think about a lot of things.
On Monday, many customers were not in a good mood after finding out they will have to pay more money to renew their vehicle registrations.
It's very unfair. I own 3 vehicles and it's already high enough paying car insurance. Now I got to pay more vehicle registration fees. I don't think it's right.
According to the MVA, starting July 1st, passenger vehicles that weigh 3,500 pounds or less will now cost $120.50 per year to register. Heavier cars weighing 3,700 pounds will see a $30 increase, bringing the fee to register to $191.50 for a year.
Well, for me, it's not that tough. Everything goes up. But for those, it goes up every year. But they have cut it, they have made it so you can get 1 year or 2 years to help you out a little bit. Also, I know Maryland, our funds are a little short, so I understand.
State lawmakers passed the higher rates during this year's General Assembly session and say the funds are needed to help pay for transportation projects.
Just raising it to be raising is kind of crazy. It just makes no sense.
1 year ago, the registration fees were raised. Motorists we spoke to tell us they're hoping the cost will go down next year. In Prince George's County, Tim Reed, DC News Now.
All right, thanks to Tim. New today, Maryland's MARC trains are planning for a massive expansion with proposed stops reaching Northern Virginia, Delaware, and Western Maryland. Well, the Maryland Transit Administration is planning for stops in Alexandria and Hagerstown, as well as Wilmington, Delaware, Martinsburg, West Virginia. Now, the plan also looks to provide more frequent all-day service, including on weekends. The total estimated cost for the plan is more than $13 billion within 25 years. All right, let's talk last-minute groceries for the holiday. Trader Joe's will close early Friday at 5, while Whole Foods says it's going to be open until on the 4th, but hours may vary at each store. Target, Walmart, and Kroger will have normal hours, and at Aldi, Hobby Lobby, and CVS, they're open as well, but with limited hours. Well, D.C. leaders are getting ready for a pretty big milestone. July 4th, 2026 will be America's 250th birthday. And for the occasion, leaders are unveiling a new way to experience history. Yesterday, they unveiled a 51 Steps to Freedom tour. It's an augmented reality walking exhibit designed to showcase the untold stories from America's past. One of the creators of the exhibits tells us what she wants people to get out of it.
51 Steps will make history accessible and engaging for everyone. No matter how you learn, 51 Steps will meet you there.
And you can download a free app that unlocks the videos and art and audio guide, and it'll take you through 16 pilot locations with 51 stops planned overall. Now, the full experience will span 8 miles and will feature more than 300 stories. And do you play Subway Surfers? Well, the popular mobile game is inviting players to race through iconic monuments and fireworks-filled streets while unlocking a brand new lineup of characters, boards, and themed content. And it's all in celebration of July 4th. Limited time update is available now until July 17th.